A Love Without Borders, the story of Marco and Luca. Under the sky of a warm summer evening, Marco and Luca held hands, walking along the beach. The waves crashed gently on the shore, while the sun set on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. They were happy, finally free to be themselves after years of battles and sacrifices. Marco, with a radiant smile, stopped and looked into Luca's eyes. "I never imagined we would get to this point," he said, his voice full of emotion. Luca nodded, tears of joy shining in his eyes. "We broke down walls that seemed insurmountable, but now we can live our love without fear." After years of struggle, Marco and Luca had finally found their place in the world. They were both accomplished professionals. Marco, a successful architect, and Luca, a passionate teacher. Their home, a haven filled with art and color, had become a symbol of their victory. However, it hadn't always been that simple. Years ago, Marco had feared revealing his true identity to his family. Join us, and remember that love has no color and every story deserves to be told. Subscribe to our channel to discover unique and inspiring content. He remembered the day he finally found the courage to do it, a day that turned out to be the most memorable day of his life, for reasons both good and bad. It was a Sunday, and the family was gathered around the table for lunch, a ritual that was repeated every week. The smell of his mother's ragu filled the air, but for Marco, that smell was not comforting at all. Sitting there, his heart pounding and his hands sweaty, he knew that this moment would change everything. The laughter of his parents and the chatter of his brothers seemed far away, as if he were in another dimension. "I have something to tell you," he began, his voice shaking. His parents' eyes turned to him, curious but also concerned. Marco steeled himself, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. "I'm gay." The silence that followed was deafening, like a thunderclap on a clear day. The mother, with tears streaming from her eyes, stood up, her face pale and her eyes wide open. "You can't be serious," she exclaimed, her voice breaking with emotion. Marco felt his heart break while his father looked at him with a look that mixed confusion and disappointment. In the days that followed, Marco felt like a stranger in his own home. Every meal was a moment of tension, every word a potential conflict. His siblings tried to maintain normalcy, but the absence of their mother, who avoided eye contact and retreated into her world of pain, weighed on everyone. Marco felt trapped between his love for his family and his desire to be himself. After weeks of silence and tension, his mother finally spoke to him again. "I don't understand why you can't be like other people," she said, her voice heavy with sadness. Marco realized that her words were not just a rejection of his identity, but a manifestation of her fear of losing the son he knew. Over time, however, understanding began to blossom. Marco decided to approach the situation with patience and love. He began to bring home articles and stories of people who had lived similar experiences, hoping to open a dialogue. His mother slowly began to read and reflect. The nights spent discussing, crying, and laughing together began to rebuild their bond. One day, as they sat together in the garden, Marco felt it was time for another step. "Mom, I don't want you to be afraid of me. I'm still your son," he said, his hands shaking as he searched her eyes. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she leaned in and hugged him. "I love you, Marco. I just want you to be happy." Luca, for his part, had faced a similar reaction. He remembered the day he had revealed his identity to his parents, his heart in his throat and his mind full of doubts. His mother, shocked by the news, had withdrawn, while his father had reacted with anger, throwing words that deeply hurt Luca. But his determination to live authentically had prevailed. Over time, his family began to understand too. Luca brought home friends and partners, creating an environment of acceptance that slowly spread to his parents as well. Both Marco and Luca had to face their own demons and break down the walls of denial and fear. But through the pain and tears, they had found the strength to be themselves, and in the end, their families had learned to love them for who they really were. Those dramatic moments, although difficult, had laid the foundation for the happiness they now shared, transforming the scars of the past into symbols of resilience and love. Before facing families, there was school. Marco and Luca had met during their first year of high school, both shy and uncertain, like two flowers blooming in hostile terrain. The hallways were filled with judgmental voices, laughter that turned into cruel whispers, and the fear of being discovered had kept them away from each other. Every day, walking among the students was like crossing a minefield, where every step could unleash attacks and derision. Marco, with his creative spirit, loved to draw and write, but he felt forced to hide his true essence. Luca, on the other hand, took refuge in books, seeking comfort in stories of heroes and impossible loves. Both felt a deep attraction, but the fear of being judged pushed them to keep their distance. One day, everything changed. During physical education class, a classmate, Matteo, was targeted by a group of bullies. Their cutting words and mocking laughter echoed through the hallways, while Matteo, visibly in difficulty, tried to hide his tears. Marco and Luca, witnessing the scene, felt a knot in their stomachs. It was as if they saw their own vulnerability reflected in Matteo. After school, Marco approached Luca, his heart pounding. "We have to do something," he said, his voice full of determination. Luca nodded, fear turning to courage. "Let's organize a meeting. We have to raise awareness among our classmates and make them understand that it's not right to bully someone for who they are." That decision was a turning point. Their friendship turned into an unbreakable bond, united by the will to fight injustice. The preparation for the meeting was difficult. Marco created flyers and posters with messages of inclusion, while Luca studied stories of bullying. Despite their commitment, the fear of the reception of the initiative accompanied them constantly. On the day of the meeting, the classroom was full and the students looked at each other, between skepticism and curiosity. Marco and Luca went up on stage, their hands shaking but determined. Marco began to speak, his voice uncertain and growing stronger. "We are here to talk about love and respect. Each of us has the right to be who we are without fear of being judged." His words filled the classroom as Luca recounted his experience, sharing how bullying had affected him, Marco, and also Matteo. "We cannot remain silent. We must unite and fight against hate," he concluded, his face alight with genuine passion. When they finished, there was a moment of silence. Then, a timid applause spread among the students, growing in intensity. Some of the boys stood up, joining in the applause, and Marco and Luca exchanged a look of disbelief and joy. That day marked the beginning of a change. In the following days, things started to improve. Matteo, supported by his friends, felt stronger and began to defend himself. Marco and Luca became an important guide for many people, creating a support group dedicated to students with different orientations and those who supported them. However, there was no shortage of criticism and insults from some classmates who refused to change. They received threats and anonymous ridicule, and fear returned. Despite everything, however, they did not let themselves be intimidated. They supported each other, finding strength in their bond and always remembering the reason why they fought, not only for themselves, but to give a voice to those who needed it. The fight strengthened their friendship, and over time, Marco and Luca created a support network for students, making the school more welcoming. Their determination broke down ignorance, and the friendship turned into a deep love, becoming a beacon of hope in an often dark world. Marco's childhood memories were of confusion and discovery. He loved to draw hearts and flowers, but he felt different from others. Luca, on the other hand, took refuge in books, dreaming of a love without borders. Both had felt same-sex attraction since they were little, but society did not accept those feelings. As they grew up, they learned to hide their true identities, building invisible walls around their hearts. Their story began on a warm summer afternoon when they met for the first time in the park. Marco was drawing and Luca, curious, approached. From that moment, their lives intertwined. The path to happiness was full of obstacles, with every step a challenge and every confession an act of courage. Despite everything, they always found strength in each other. Now, as the sun set and the stars began to shine, Marco and Luca knew that their love was a beacon of hope. They had broken down the walls of fear and judgment, and their bond had become unbreakable. Marco and Luca, after overcoming personal and family struggles regarding their identity, find happiness and acceptance in their love for each other, showing their journey from turmoil to triumph. With a bright future ahead of them, they were ready to face any challenge, together, hand in hand. They were no longer willing to hide, nor to let the world decide for them what was right or wrong. They had realized that true courage is not just about loving, but about doing so fearlessly, with the certainty that every battle they had overcome had only made their bond even stronger. Thank you for watching this video. Every story we share is a message of hope, strength, and love, and you are part of this positive revolution. Subscribe to the channel and join this wonderful community that celebrates love in all its forms. By spreading these messages, we can give a voice to those who feel invisible. Change starts with small things: a story, a word of support, a gesture of understanding. If this video touched you, drop a comment and share it with someone who might need it. You never know. This message might be the comfort they didn't realize they were looking for. Thank you for being here and for being part of this journey. Together we can make a difference.